Hello everyone, in this module we will learn how to create a lease in Nakisa Real Estate. Once your premise has been activated, you have the option to open your premise for modifications if you are required to make any changes. You can then click on the Create a Lease button within the action menu. You will notice that you will be prompted to select the Create a Lease form option. You will be required to select whether you want to start from a blank lease or from a lease template. We will select a blank lease. Once selected, click Next. You'll then be able to fill out all the mandatory information appearing in the pop-up, including the type of the lease, the state, the category, the dates, etc. You can then add any notes and click Save. Remember that those notes can always be deleted or modified by clicking always on the three dots that are at the right of the screen. Once you've completed and you click Save, you'll be redirected to the main lease page. On this page, you will see the details pertaining to your lease. Once again, you'll have a summary of your lease at the top left and the action menu to the right. If you need to modify anything, you can do so within the Identification tab in the middle of the page. The action menu allows the user to consult several interesting fields. Any activity history can be viewed here. If there was an option to modify the terms of the lease, the history will appear here. The lease diagram allows the users to see if there have been any previous draft or scenarios. The timeline allows the user to see if there have been any previous drafts, and it displays the same information as the lease diagram under another view. Scheduled payments can also be viewed here once the lease has been activated and the terms have been added within the contracts and terms. As a user, you also have the option to export the lease summary. Once you click on it, a pop-up window will appear with a summary of your lease. You'll then have the option to export that lease and even save it as a PDF. One important feature within the action menu is the reminder. As a user, you can create a reminder which serves as a personal note. For example, you can add yourself a reminder and select the subject, primary user, date, status, and reminder type. To do so, you can click here on the plus button. You can then select all the mandatory information. And you can also add a date and a follow-up date. You can determine the status, whether it's active, canceled, completed, or pending. And you can select the type of reminder, such as email, email and pop-up, none, or just a pop-up. If you have any comments to add, you can do so here. And once you're done, you can go ahead and click Save. Once you close, then you added your reminder. As you can see, your reminder will pop up on your lease page. If you have completed this reminder, you can go ahead and simply click on the check mark. Let's move forward to the Contracts and Terms tab. Here, you will be prompted to create your master lease agreement, your contract, your terms, and your activation group. Let's go ahead and create our master agreement by clicking on the plus button. All the information previously selected will be automatically transferred within this tab. All you need to do is click Save. You can then open the Partners tab and select any vendors if you want to associate one to this particular file. In this case, we can select a lender from Canada. Once you selected it, you can go ahead and send to approval. You can then go ahead and approve. And as you can see, the state is now active. If you're required to make any changes, you can always click on Callback and modify the information that you need. Now let's create our contract by clicking on the plus button once again. Once more, the general information will auto-populate within the system, and you can go ahead and click Save. The accounting information will also be there, and you can click Save. And then you can go ahead and select the vendor. You also have the possibility of selecting several vendors at a time, or if you only have one, you can go ahead and click, select, and click Save. Once all the information has been added, you can go ahead and send for approval. As you can see here, your state will be in the defined status. And once you send to approval, that status will change. You can then approve. And once everything is finalized, your state will be active. Once again, you have the option to call back if you want to modify any information that you've previously added. Let's continue by clicking on the Terms tab. Once again, here you can create by clicking on the plus button. If you see that any of the general information is wrong, you can always go back and modify it, either within the Identification tab, and then you can click Save. At the bottom here, you can add your terms by clicking on the plus button. Here you can select the type, the term type, and the name of the term you want to add. Let's just select a base rent. Underneath, you can select the amount of your base rent, and you can determine the payment frequency. You can also select the dates of your lease, and determine the payment timing, whether it's at the start of the day or at the end of the day. As you can see here, once you input the dates within the system, you'll have the months and the duration of your lease that will appear here. If you have any escalating rent or you want to stop escalating the rent, you can always select the options right here. Once you've entered all the information, you can go ahead and click Save. Once all the information has been added and you have added all your terms, whether it's lease or non-lease terms, you can go ahead and approve the status. You can then click Approve once again. And as you can see, you once again have the option to call it back or even to discard it. Keep in mind that all this information can also be entered within our lease administration module by clicking on the button here. You'll be redirected to our lease administration module each time you click on this button right here. Once all your terms have been added, you can go ahead into your activation groups. You can confirm the general information. And you can exercise your terms. If you have any terms that you don't want to exercise, for example, such as parking that starts later on, you have the option not to exercise those terms. You can then send two initials for your unit, receive them, and activate. Once you follow those steps, you can send everything to assessment. Keep in mind that if your lease is over a long period of time, sending to assessment might take a little longer. Once you've sent to assessment, you can then go ahead and approve your activation. Confirm classification. Once confirmed, you can then go ahead and activate. Once all the information has been added, as you can see, the exclamation mark no longer appears within the Contracts and Terms tab. Now let's move on to critical clauses. Please take note that the percentage rent will be discussed in a separate module. Here you can define all the options and clauses stipulated in the lease that have specific dates. Those dates will be the basis of the critical dates report. To add a critical clause, hit the plus button. Select the type. Select whether it is applicable or not, and click Save. You'll notice that your page will now display your critical clause type. Click on the downward facing arrow to expand the critical clause. You can then click on the plus button again to create your critical clause. Here, you have mandatory fields that are required to be filled out, such as notification date. As you can see, whenever you scroll over the dates, you'll have a definition as well. A notification date will appear in the Action Center, reminding you a critical clause is coming to term. As a reminder, the Action Center is available here, and you have all the critical clauses, leases, activity history, and activations that always appear here. If we go back to the critical clause, your early notice will be the date that you will notify the landlord that you'll exercise the critical clause, and your latest notice will be the date you notify the landlord if you are exercising the critical clause or not. Once this notice is expired, it is too late to make any changes. For the purpose of this example, we'll just add a notification date here. You can also select any rent or cost relating to your critical clause, and you can put any dates or the page where it's located in the lease. If you also have any notes that you want to add, you can add them here, click the check mark, and then click on Save. Once done, the critical clause will appear on the list here. If you want to modify it, all you need to do is click on the three dots under the action column and click Edit Critical Clause. Now onto clauses. Here you can define all the clauses indicated in your lease, which are conducted without a date. The clauses defined here can have dates, but they are not critical in the sense that the clauses do not depend on set dates. To add a clause type, once again, you can click the plus button. You can select the type and click Save. As a reminder, if you don't want this clause to be applicable, simply toggle the menu and click Save. If we want it to be applicable, do not click on this button here. Once again, the page would display your clause. If you click on the arrow, you'll be able to add details concerning your clause, such as the rent or the cost, the page in the lease, and the section as well. If you want, once again, you can add a note by clicking on the plus button. And once you added all your information, you can click Save. Now let's move on to lease incentives. Concerning the conditions and the reconciliation, we will discuss this in another module as well. In the Lease Incentives tab, you'll find a summary of the lease incentive mentioned in your contract, such as free rent, free parking, or payments for tenant improvements. Incentives can be a useful tool for landlords and leasing agents to fill vacancies and stabilize their rental income. To add a new entry, simply click on the plus button, and you will see you'll have mandatory information to fill out, such as the type, and you can add an amount, a page, and a section. You can also create draws within the system and a trigger. And you can determine the draw number, the percentage of that draw, a follow-up date, and even input an amount and an invoice date. If you also have notes, you can add those here and then simply click on save. Once again, you have the possibility of adding notes here at the bottom by clicking on the plus button. And you can also upload any files or add the link to a document. Once you've added all the information required, you can go ahead and click on save. As you can see, the list will refresh and you'll have all the information displayed here. In the Insurance tab, you can add all your insurance documents, such as general liability, floor insurance, hazard and fire, sewer insurance, or more. To create an insurance clause, you can click on the plus button, and then you can select the type and indicate the amount, if applicable. For example, we can put general liability at an amount of $5 million. If you have the page within the lease, you can write it down here, as well as the section. If you want to add any extra notes, you can do so here by clicking on the plus button, and then you can go ahead and click on save. The separate agreement tab is useful for obtaining information on additional agreements such as parking, storage, or even electricity supply or telecommunication service agreements. Once again, in order to add any document here, all you need to do is click on the plus button and fill out any mandatory information, such as the type, which you can select, and the status, whether it's active, inactive, and you also have the possibility of adding a new option within the system. If you have any dates, you can add them here or a latest notice as well. And you can add any notes or, once again, upload a document. Once all the information is added, you can go ahead and click on save. Within the document tab, the user has the possibility to add any documents pertaining to the lease only. To add a document, you can go ahead and click on the arrow here, and you'll be able to upload a document by clicking on the plus button here. Once you save the document to your computer, you'll be able to upload it, determine the title, a description, a status, which you can also add, whether it's pending or signed or any other status that you have for your document, the document type, and also a signature date. As you can see here at the bottom, you have a toggle menu, which allows the vendor to see this document. If you were to engage it, you'll be able to share it with the vendors that have access to the system. If you don't want to share it, simply do not click on this button. Once you've added the document, you can go ahead and click on save. Finally, the user-defined fields can be added here. All user-defined fields previously added within the admin panel will appear here. You can add the information required, such as business hours, number of cubicles, or any other information that you have previously added that pertains to your lease and that is important to your lease. In this module, we learned how to create a lease and outline all the items relating to the VIN table, critical clauses, and more.